The music was loud, the laughter louder, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Maybe it was the crowd. Maybe the strobe lights flashing across faces I barely recognized. Or maybe it was because I'd just seen her standing at the far end of the room, her gaze fixed on me like time had suddenly stopped. My best friend's older sister, the one who vanished years ago without saying goodbye. And now here she was walking straight toward me, her heels cutting through the noise, her eyes unreadable. Before I could even think, she was there, close enough that the scent of her perfume mixed with the faint smell of champagne. And then with a trembling voice that didn't match her confident stance, she said, "You're the reason I came tonight." Backhand index pointing right before the story continues. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes that broken hearts can heal. I wasn't supposed to even be at that party. My friend Ethan had begged me to come, saying I needed a break after the messy breakup I'd gone through months earlier. I'd spent the last few weeks drowning in work, avoiding people, avoiding life. So, when he said his parents were out of town and we could finally throw a big party, I reluctantly agreed. I didn't know it would bring back ghosts I'd buried long ago. Her name was Sophie, Ethan's older sister, 3 years older than us. She'd always seemed like the kind of person who belonged to another world. Elegant, smart, and endlessly kind. When I was a shy teenager hanging out at Ethan's house, she was the one who'd make sure I ate. The one who encouraged me to chase my passion for photography when everyone else called it a waste of time. I'd secretly admired her for years, though I never said a word. She graduated, left for another city, and that was that. She became a memory, a beautiful, untouchable part of my past. Until tonight, I tried to speak, to say something, anything, but words failed me. Sophie smiled faintly, though her eyes were filled with something deeper, something painful. She motioned for me to follow her, and we slipped away from the noise, out into the quiet backyard. The cool night air brushed against us as the laughter from inside faded behind closed doors. She stood there for a moment, looking up at the sky, like she was searching for the right words. When she finally spoke, her voice broke a little. She told me she'd see my photos online, the ones I'd taken of sunsets, old streets, and broken people trying to smile again. She said they'd helped her through a dark time. That after she'd lost someone close to her, her fiancé, she'd fallen apart. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even breathe without feeling like the world was collapsing. But one night, she stumbled on my photography page by accident. And for the first time in months, she felt something again. Hope, she said. One of my photos, a lonely bench under golden sunlight, reminded her that endings weren't always permanent. That sometimes light returns when you least expect it. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there stunned, realizing that something I'd done out of pain had somehow healed someone else's. When my own breakup had shattered me, photography became my escape, the only way I could express the storm inside me. I had no idea my pain had traveled beyond me, reaching someone who needed it more than I could have imagined. But Sophie wasn't done. She looked at me, eyes shining with tears she didn't let fall. "You saved me without even knowing it," she whispered. "You reminded me that beauty still exists and that people can be good." For a moment, silence wrapped around us. The only sound was the faint music from inside, muffled by the walls. I could feel my throat tighten, emotions I hadn't felt in months, stirring to life. I wanted to tell her that she had done the same for me years ago. That her kindness when I was younger had given me courage when I had none. That her words had once stopped me from giving up on dreams everyone else mocked. But before I could say it, she reached out and held my hand. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was human, warm, trembling, and real. She told me she'd moved back home to help their mother after she fell ill. And Ethan had convinced her to come to the party to relax. But what she didn't tell him was that she came hoping to see me because she needed to thank me. She needed to close a chapter that never really ended. I remember staring at her, realizing how fragile life could be, how people carry invisible battles behind calm smiles. She'd looked so strong all those years, but now I saw the cracks, the pain, and the strength it took to still stand tall. The night deepened, the stars came out. We talked for hours, sitting on that old garden bench that used to be our childhood hideout. She told me about her life, the heartbreak, the loneliness, and the rediscovery of herself. I told her about my struggles, too. How I'd thought love was something that only broke you until I started finding pieces of myself in the small things. We laughed at old memories. We cried quietly at the painful ones. And in that quiet backyard, surrounded by shadows and distant laughter, something began to heal between us. Not love, not yet, but something gentler. Understanding. When the party started dying down, Sophie stood up and brushed her hands against her dress. She looked at me one last time and said, "You know, sometimes the people who disappear aren't running away from others. They're running back to themselves." I never forgot those words. Over the next few weeks, Sophie and I started crossing paths more often. Ethan noticed but didn't mind. He thought it was nice that his sister was finally smiling again. We'd grab coffee, go for walks, and sometimes just sit in silence. She'd talk about her late fiancé, how she wished she'd told him more often how much he meant. And I'd listen, realizing how much courage it takes to love after loss. She started helping me with my photography projects, offering ideas, introducing me to people who could feature my work. She became not just inspiration but motivation, reminding me to turn pain into purpose. And slowly, that friendship began to mean something neither of us could easily define. Then one day, she showed up at my small apartment with a photo frame in her hands. It was my photo, the one of the lonely bench under sunlight, but beneath it, she'd written a single line for the one who helped me find my way back to the light. I felt my throat close up. She smiled, placed it on my shelf, and said, "I think you're meant to share that light with others, not hide it." After that day, things started to change. I got an offer from a local art gallery to showcase my work. Sophie helped me set everything up, encouraging me through every moment of doubt. On the opening night, she stood in the crowd, watching quietly as people admired the photos. Our eyes met and she smiled, the kind of smile that said, "We made it through." But the most emotional moment came when an older woman approached me at the gallery. She said one of my photos reminded her of her late husband and that she hadn't smiled in months until that night. I felt a lump in my throat. Sophie was right. Sometimes healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet things we create. Life, of course, didn't suddenly become perfect. There were days Sophie would still struggle with grief. Days I'd still feel the weight of old heartbreaks. But we found comfort in each other's strength. She became my muse, my friend, and maybe something more, though neither of us dared label it. Some stories don't need labels to be meaningful. Months later, Ethan threw another party. This time, to celebrate my photography show success. As I looked around, surrounded by friends and laughter, I caught Sophie's gaze across the room again, just like that first night. Except this time, her smile wasn't hiding sadness. It was hope. She walked toward me and I couldn't help but remember the first words she ever said that night months ago. "You're the reason I came tonight." But now I realized something. Back then she'd said it because I'd helped her heal. Tonight she said it again softly, almost like a secret because she wanted to be there for me. And in that moment, I understood something profound. Sometimes life brings people back, not to reopen old wounds, but to help you see how far you've come. Sophie wasn't a chapter I'd lost. She was proof that even broken people can help each other rebuild. As the night carried on, laughter filling the air, she leaned closer and whispered, "Thank you for showing me that it's okay to begin again." And I smiled, replying, "You did the same for me." The crowd cheered for another toast. Lights flickered, and somewhere in between the noise and the warmth, I realized something. We were both still healing. But for the first time, we weren't doing it alone. Dizzy, if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Stories that remind us love and kindness still exist even in the quietest corners of life. Dove, before you go, tell me in the comments, have you ever met someone who unknowingly changed your life?